It was a Saturday evening, and Marina had been getting ready for nearly an hour. The soft green dress she wore wasn't from a fancy brand or designer boutique, it was something she had saved up for over several weeks. She found it in a small local shop, tucked away between clearance racks. But to her, it was beautiful. It hugged her figure in a gentle, modest way. The lace detailing around the sleeves reminded her of vintage dresses her grandmother used to wear, timeless, not outdated. Marina turned in front of the mirror and smiled. She hadn't felt this pretty in a long time. She carefully applied her lipstick, a subtle shade of berry, and adjusted her earrings. Tonight wasn't a special event for her, it was Paolo's company dinner. A formal night where spouses weren't officially invited, but most of the higher-ups still brought theirs. Marina knew she wasn't expected to come. Paolo had made that clear when he said, "It's just work people, nothing interesting for you." But still, she wanted to look nice when he left. Maybe he'd compliment her. Maybe he'd change his mind and ask her to come. She heard his footsteps down the hallway. He was on the phone, laughing. Probably with someone from work. Marina quickly stepped out of the bedroom to greet him. Paolo walked into the room wearing his dark navy suit, the one Marina helped him pick out last Christmas. He didn't even look up right away, still typing on his phone. Then, just as she was about to say something, he glanced up. And laughed. "Seriously," he said, raising his eyebrows. "That dress?" Marina's heart sank, but she forced a smile. "What's wrong with it?" Paolo chuckled and tossed his phone on the bed. "It looks like one of those old curtains my mom had in her living room, you know, those dusty green ones with lace on the sides?" He shook his head and buttoned his jacket. "I mean, are you going to a costume party?" She felt her ears grow hot. "I liked it," she said softly. He picked up his cologne from the dresser and sprayed it without answering her. "Anyway, like I said, the company dinner is employees only. Super boring. You'd hate it." Marina looked down at her dress. Maybe she had made a mistake. Maybe it did look silly. But Paolo wasn't done. "Seriously though," he said, chuckling as he looked at her again, "you've got the full curtain vibe going. All you need is a curtain rod on your shoulders." That time, he laughed harder, like it was the funniest thing in the world. Marina didn't say anything. Her throat felt tight. She turned toward the mirror and pretended to fix her hair, even though her fingers were shaking. Paolo didn't notice. He was back on his phone, checking messages. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up. There's probably going to be speeches and stuff." He gave her a quick pat on the shoulder, not a kiss, not a hug, and walked out the door, whistling. The room was quiet again. She could still hear his laugh in her head. Curtain. Costume party. Curtain rod. Over and over, like a stuck record. She looked at herself in the mirror again. The same dress. The same reflection. But now it looked different. Not because the dress had changed, but because of what he said. Marina had been married to Paolo for 9 years. At first, he was sweet. He used to hold her hand in public, compliment her hair, bring her coffee in bed on Sundays. But slowly, and she still didn't know when it started, things changed. Now, most of their conversations were short. He didn't ask about her day anymore. He barely noticed when she bought new clothes or got a haircut. But worse than the silence, were the little jabs. The comments disguised as jokes. The constant sarcasm. The way he made her feel small, even when he didn't raise his voice. Tonight was just another example. Still, Marina didn't cry. She had cried before, many times, but not this time. She just stood there, staring at her reflection. And instead of wiping her makeup off, she tilted her head and looked at herself again. Then she looked at the dress, the one he mocked. Does it really look like a curtain? She wondered. Even if it does, why does that mean I shouldn't wear it? The thought stayed in her mind. Normally, she would have taken it off, changed into pajamas, and curled up with a blanket and TV show, pretending not to care. But something felt different tonight. Maybe it was the way he laughed, loud and careless, as if her feelings didn't exist. Maybe it was how he left, like she was invisible. Or maybe, it was just time. She stepped away from the mirror and picked up her phone. Her hands hovered over the screen for a moment, then she typed a name, Carla. Carla was an old college friend. They hadn't spoken much in the last year, but Marina knew she worked in fashion and PR. She also knew Carla had a talent for making women feel powerful. Even just by talking to them. Marina typed a message. Hey. I know it's last minute. But do you have time tonight? I want to look like me again. Within 2 minutes, Carla replied. Of course. Come over. I've got just the thing. Marina stared at the reply. Her heart was beating faster now, not from sadness, but from something else, clarity. She didn't know what she was planning. She didn't know where the night would take her. But one thing was clear, she wasn't going to sit at home, feeling like a joke in a dress she loved. She was going to be seen. The ride to Carla's place was quiet. Marina didn't turn on music. She didn't need noise. Her mind was already full, spinning with memories, doubts, and small broken pieces of self-worth she had tried to glue together for years. She had changed out of her slippers and put on her black heels. The same green dress Paolo had laughed at still clung to her body. She hadn't taken it off. Not because she was stubborn, but because deep down, she still believed it was beautiful. And more importantly, it was hers. She had picked it for herself. She had paid for it with her own savings. She had tried it on, smiled in the mirror, and said, yes. This is me. And she wasn't going to let a joke, not even from her husband, take that away. Carla lived in a small studio apartment above a photography gallery. When Marina arrived, Carla opened the door in jeans and an oversized tee, her hair tied up in a bun. Her eyes lit up when she saw Marina. Oh my God, Carla said, hugging her. You look gorgeous. I'm so happy you came. Marina smiled, a real one, for the first time that day. I'm glad too. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I should. You absolutely should. Carla stepped aside and let her in. Now sit. I have ideas. The studio smelled like lavender and fresh coffee. There were racks of dresses, shelves of shoes, and drawers labeled with things like bold earrings, classic pearls, editorial lips. It was like stepping into a different world, a place where women weren't just seen, they were celebrated. Carla made Marina a cup of tea, then gently removed her earrings and began working. She didn't ask questions right away. She didn't say, what happened, or is everything okay with Paolo? She just moved gently, like someone who had seen enough brokenness to recognize the pieces, and knew when to let silence speak first. Marina stared at herself in the large makeup mirror. As Carla applied foundation, blended shadows, and curled her lashes, something shifted inside her. The sadness didn't disappear, but it softened. It made space for something else, not quite confidence, but something close. When Carla was done, she leaned back and smiled. You look like a woman who knows exactly where she's going. Marina tilted her head and looked at her reflection. She did. I don't know why, Marina said quietly, but I feel like I want to show up tonight. At Paolo's event. Carla raised an eyebrow. Do it. But I wasn't invited. He told me it was for employees only. Carla smirked. You think half of those people's wives got official invites? You think the CEO's wife needs permission to attend a dinner? Please. Go. And if anyone asks, you're there to pick him up. Marina hesitated. I don't want to cause drama. Carla leaned closer. You're not going there to cause anything. You're going to exist. To be seen. If that makes someone uncomfortable, maybe they were too comfortable ignoring you. Marina blinked slowly. Those words stuck. Too comfortable ignoring you. How long had she been invisible? She stood up. Carla reached for a drawer and pulled out a box. Wear these. Inside were a pair of long, crystal earrings. Delicate, but radiant. They caught the light and refracted it into something magical. When Marina put them on, the entire look transformed. She didn't look like someone going to beg for attention, she looked like someone who knew she already deserved it. Carla handed her a clutch. You don't have to stay long. Just enough to remind them. Remind them of what? Carla grinned. That curtain fabric looks damn good on the right woman. They both laughed, this time, not in pain, but in power. The hotel where the company dinner was being held wasn't far. Marina parked a block away and took a deep breath before stepping out. The air was cool, and the city lights bounced off the glass buildings like stars. She wasn't sure what she would do once she got inside. She wasn't sure if Paolo would be angry, surprised, embarrassed, or all three. But for once, she wasn't going to sit in the dark and wonder. She was done letting someone else decide her worth. The hotel lobby was grand, polished marble floors, tall golden pillars, soft instrumental music in the background. She asked the concierge where the marketing team's event was, and he pointed to the second ballroom on the left. As she walked down the corridor, her heels clicking softly on the tiles, she felt something strange. Not fear. Not guilt. Just clarity. When she reached the door, she paused. Through the frosted glass, she could hear chatter, laughter, and clinking glasses. She waited for a beat, then gently pushed the door open. The light hit her all at once, chandeliers reflecting off the crystals in her earrings, voices dimming just slightly, heads beginning to turn. But she didn't flinch. She stepped into the room. Not like someone who didn't belong, but like someone who had every right to be there. At first, no one said anything. A few people looked at her, smiled politely, then went back to their conversations. But it didn't take long. As Marina walked toward the side of the room, scanning for Paolo, someone whispered, "Who is that?" A woman in red turned to her partner and said, "She's stunning." Another murmured, "Is she one of the speaker's wives?" And then she saw him, Paolo, standing near the bar, drink in hand, laughing with a group of co-workers. He hadn't noticed her yet. Marina didn't approach him. Not yet. She found a small corner seat by a table of hors d'oeuvres and simply stood. Calm. Composed. A vision in green. She didn't have to announce herself. She didn't have to shout. All she had to do was be seen. And one by one, people began to notice. She heard her name whispered. Someone pointed. One man said, "She looks familiar. Does she work in PR?" Someone else walked up and said, "Excuse me, love your dress. May I ask where it's from?" Marina smiled. "A local shop. Just something I liked." The woman nodded. "Well, you wear it beautifully." Across the room, Paolo finally turned and saw her. His smile froze. The laughter in his throat stopped. His friends noticed his reaction. "Who's that?" one of them asked. Paolo swallowed. "That's my wife." There was silence for a moment. Then someone said, "Wow. You never bring her around." Another joked, "You sure that's your wife? Man, she looks like a magazine cover tonight." Paolo tried to play it off with a weak laugh, but something had shifted in the room. People were no longer listening to his stories, they were watching her. And she wasn't even trying. She just stood there, sipping a glass of water, smiling at the occasional compliment, and holding herself like a woman who had nothing to prove. Because she didn't. Marina didn't need to say a word. She had already spoken, with her presence, with her stillness, with her refusal to disappear. The ballroom was filled with Paolo's coworkers, executives, assistants, and department heads. Waiters moved between groups with trays of sparkling water and tiny gourmet dishes. A jazz trio played softly in the corner. It was supposed to be a networking event, but now it felt like something else entirely, a moment slowly slipping out of Paolo's control. He watched Marina from across the room, frozen for a second like he had seen a ghost, not because he was scared, but because he had completely misjudged her. The woman he saw standing there wasn't the quiet wife he ignored most days. She wasn't the insecure woman he mocked on the way out the door. No. This woman looked radiant. And everyone else noticed too. His coworker Ricardo leaned toward him. "That's your wife?" Paolo nodded, jaw tight. "Yeah." Ricardo chuckled. "Why don't you ever bring her to events?" Wow. Everyone's looking." That wow stung Paolo more than he expected. He forced a smirk. "She doesn't like corporate stuff. She usually stays home." Ricardo raised an eyebrow. "She doesn't look like someone who hides at home." Another coworker, Clara, added, "Honestly, Paolo, she's got style. That dress is everything. The green pops under the lights. Your wife's got taste." The same dress I called a curtain, Paolo thought bitterly. The same dress he laughed at, in her face. He remembered exactly what he said. Curtain fabric, he'd mocked. Costume party. And now that same dress made her the most captivating woman in the room. He tried to smile, tried to pretend it didn't bother him, but it did. Not just because she looked incredible, but because she didn't seem to care that he was watching. Marina hadn't come over. She hadn't waved at him. She hadn't tried to get his attention. She was simply existing. Calm. Confident. Untouched by his presence. She was speaking with the CEO's wife now, a woman Paolo had been trying to make small talk with for weeks. And they were laughing. Marina wasn't just noticed, she was wanted in conversations he was usually excluded from. He felt something twist in his chest. Guilt? Maybe. Or maybe it was the realization that he wasn't in control anymore. Across the room, Marina stayed composed. Her heartbeat had slowed. The hardest part, walking through that door, was already behind her. Everything else was simple. She wasn't here to show off. She wasn't here to start drama. She was just tired of sitting in the dark while the man she married acted like she didn't matter. The CEO's wife, Mrs. Duarte, was warm and kind. "You must be Paolo's wife. I've never seen you at any of these events. You're stunning, by the way. That dress, I love a woman who wears color confidently." Marina smiled. "Thank you. It's actually a small boutique piece. I wasn't even sure it worked." Mrs. Duarte touched her arm. "Trust me, it works. You've got the whole room talking." They talked for several minutes, about books, about travel, about Marina's brief past in marketing before she stepped away to support Paolo's job switch. Nothing heavy. But enough to remind Marina that she was more than a shadow standing next to someone else's success. Another executive's wife approached. "Do you do public speaking or events? You have the poise for it." Marina laughed gently. "Not in a while." "Well," the woman said, "you should. You've got presence." She kept hearing that word. Presence. The same woman Paolo had ignored this morning was now being told, by total strangers, that she had something rare, something visible. And all she did was show up as herself. At that moment, Paolo couldn't take it anymore. He set his drink down and crossed the room. On his way, 3 people patted his back, nodding toward Marina. "Good job, man," one whispered with a wink. "Didn't know your wife was the Marina everyone's talking about," another said. Paolo just smiled through his teeth. He reached her side and placed a hand on her back, a little too tightly. "Hey," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Didn't expect to see you here." Marina turned, her face calm, her eyes steady. "I wasn't planning to come," she said softly. "But plans change." Mrs. Duarte looked between them, then excused herself politely. Paolo leaned in closer. "You look," he hesitated. "Good." She tilted her head. "Not like a curtain?" Paolo blinked. "What?" She smiled, still calm. That's what you said, remember? That I looked like I was wearing your mother's living room curtains. He looked around, lowering his voice. Can we talk somewhere else? Marina didn't move. Why? Because people are staring. They were already staring, she said gently. Just not at you. That hit him hard. He stepped back slightly, stung by the truth of it. Look, I was just joking earlier. You know how I am. Marina nodded. Yes. I do know how you are. Paolo crossed his arms. So what, this is payback. You dress up, crash the event, and make me look bad in front of everyone? Marina's voice didn't change. Still calm. Still centered. No. I didn't come here for you at all. That stopped him. I came here for me, she added. For the version of me you stopped seeing. The one I stopped seeing too, after so many years of being told I was too much or not enough. Today, I remembered she exists. That's all. She turned to go. Wait, he said, grabbing her wrist, gently, but with urgency. Marina, please. She looked at his hand, then at his face. I'm not leaving because I'm angry, she said softly. I'm leaving because I'm no longer invisible. With that, she walked away. People parted for her like the sea. She didn't look back. Marina didn't cry on the way out of the hotel. She didn't smile either. She just walked, heels steady, shoulders upright, breathing calm. Her heart wasn't racing like it had earlier. It was steady. Strong. For the first time in a long time, Marina didn't feel small. She didn't feel like a background character in someone else's life. She wasn't the forgotten wife. She wasn't the woman Paolo laughed at before heading out the door. She wasn't the woman who sat on the couch alone, waiting for love to return. She was herself again. And that feeling, that quiet, powerful feeling, was worth more than any compliment, applause, or attention. As she stepped outside, the cool night air kissed her cheeks. She took a deep breath, looked up at the lights of the city, and finally let out a single exhale, not of exhaustion, but release. In that moment, she knew something had changed. Not just in the way Paolo saw her, but in how she saw herself. That night wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving a point. It was about remembering her worth, in a world where people like Paolo tried to make women forget it, little by little, year by year. Meanwhile, back inside the ballroom, Paolo wasn't laughing anymore. People were still talking, but the conversations had shifted. Marina's name floated between groups like perfume. Everyone had something to say about her, how elegant she looked, how graceful she was, how different she seemed from the woman Paolo had described over the years. She doesn't come to company events because she's shy, Paolo had once told a coworker. She just isn't really into all this fancy stuff, he had told another. Now, none of that added up. Because tonight, she had walked in and owned the room, without saying a single loud word. And Paolo? He looked like a man who had just realized the gift he'd thrown away. His boss, Mr. Duarte, walked over to him. You married to her? Paolo nodded, nervously adjusting his sleeves. Yeah. Mr. Duarte tilted his head. She's impressive. Why don't you ever bring her around? Paolo forced a smile. She's usually busy. Home stuff. Mr. Duarte looked him dead in the eyes. You're lucky, Paolo. Most people would kill to have someone like that by their side. Make sure you don't take it for granted. And with that, he walked away. The words sat heavy on Paolo's chest. Don't take it for granted. But he already had. Back at home, Marina stepped into the apartment, the same one she had left hours ago in silence, holding back tears. But now, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt clean. Still. Honest. She poured herself a glass of water and sat on the couch. No TV. No phone. Just her and the sound of her own breathing. She didn't know what Paolo would say when he came home. She didn't even know if she wanted to hear it. All she knew was that something had shifted inside her, something she couldn't ignore again. The door unlocked around midnight. Paolo stepped in, loosening his tie. He looked tired. Confused. Maybe even scared. Marina looked up from the couch but didn't say anything. He stood in the doorway for a moment, then walked over slowly. "You looked beautiful tonight." She said nothing. "I mean it," he added. "I didn't know you still, I didn't realize you still had that spark." Marina finally spoke. "I always had it. You just stopped looking." Paolo sat down on the other end of the couch. "I didn't mean to hurt you with what I said earlier. The curtain joke, it was stupid. I thought I was being funny." "You weren't," she said quietly. He nodded, swallowing hard. "I know. I've been under stress, with work, and..." Marina cut in gently. "You're not under more stress than the women who carry their homes, their husbands, and themselves every single day, without applause." He looked down. She continued, voice steady. "You don't get to treat me like furniture until you feel embarrassed." There was a long pause. The room felt heavier now. "Do you want a divorce?" he finally asked. Marina looked at him, not in anger, not even in sadness, but with calm resolve. "I don't know what I want yet," she said. "But I do know what I don't want anymore." "What's that?" "To be invisible in my own life." He nodded slowly. "I understand." "I hope you do," she said, standing up. "Because next time you try to dim someone's light, they might just walk into a room and blind you." He looked up at her, stunned. She walked past him, her heels clicking on the floor like punctuation marks, final, clear, and unshaken. That night, Marina didn't slam the door. She didn't scream or throw things. She didn't break down crying. She simply went into the bedroom, closed the door, and left Paolo sitting in the quiet, the same quiet she had endured for years. But for him, it felt completely different. For the first time, it hurt. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Photos from the event were posted online. A professional photographer had captured several candid shots, executives chatting, speeches being made, glasses raised. But the photo that went viral within the company's internal group? A single image of Marina standing under the chandelier, smiling as she spoke to Mrs. Duarte. The green dress, the one Paolo called a curtain, sparkled under the lights like emeralds. The caption read, "The elegance in the room was unmatched." No one tagged Paolo. No one needed to. He saw it. Everyone saw it. And that was enough. The twist? The next month, Marina received an unexpected message. A fashion and lifestyle magazine, one that covered everyday stories of women with resilience, had reached out. They saw the photo. They wanted to feature her in a column called Rediscovering You. When they asked her what changed that night, Marina answered simply, "I stopped waiting for someone to see me, and decided to see myself."